Here we are on our first Friday of 2024. And what I want to do here is come every month and talk with you about whatever the big questions are that you might have as far as unschooling goes. Questions like, how will they learn what they need to know without curriculum? What do you mean when you say no screen limits? What does that really mean? Or what happens if I don't like the word unschooling and I don't want to use the word unschooling, but I like the ideas about it? These are all real questions that people really, maybe even you, are wondering, what are we going to do about this? And how do you overcome all the fears that you have? Because maybe you'll be going along really well, and then suddenly something happens and you're like, I don't know if this is a good idea. This is a really, really common thing to have happen. And there are things you can do to help you not get stuck, or when you get stuck, to help you get unstuck a little quicker than last time. So I have almost 30 years of experience. I certainly have plenty of experience getting stuck or feeling doubt or having fear, all of those things. And I know what worked and I know what didn't work and may or may not work or not work for you, but I can always share that experience with you because that's really my goal is that I am I am just a mom from the suburbs. I was not planning to do this. School just didn't work for my kid. And so I thought I can try this. I can do second grade. We'll just try it for a year and see how it goes. And the more I did, the better it got. So you may be in that same situation. Unschooling is all about peeling back the layers to see what things do we feel like have to be done. Sometimes that's because of our conditioning. Sometimes it's because of all those years in school. And really, it wasn't always, you must learn this way. It was, in order for our system to move efficiently, you must learn this way. But once you come out of that system, there are so many options for how to learn. And that's what I am like on a mission. My kids are grown now, but I accumulated so much information. And I just think it would be nice to share this giant pile of information with people who are in the same boat I was in 27 years ago. And so that's what I want to do. I want to help you out. And I have a variety of ways to do that and a couple of slides that we'll look at and talk about. But I think the big question for this month is, what's a typical day like? How is this supposed to go? Right? So this is what we're doing. Question of the month. Every month a new question. And this time it's, what's a typical day like? So I want to know whether you are here because you're just curious about unschooling, whether you're homeschooling now, whether your kids are still in school, whether your kids are under school age. It helps me know what kind of information that you need. If you're watching the recording, put it in the comments below because sometimes it's helpful to know where other people are on this. Sometimes we can feel really isolated, and I want you to know that you're not alone. Maybe you're already unschooling and you just need a little inspiration, or you have some questions or some things are not working out. So I want you to tell us. Okay, lots of times though, people just say, I want a map. I want to use this typical day as kind of a roadmap to help me get from a schooly way, whether it's school or traditional homeschooling, to an unschooling way, more of natural or organic learning, or a real individualized approach. Here's our plan for this particular webinar. We're going to talk about what is typical, why we want to know this, how we're going to see things a little bit differently, some examples from unschooling families, and I'm going to have some action steps for you. If we haven't met, I'm Sue Patterson, and I'm an unschooling coach and a mentor. And these are my three kids down here. Let me see if I can. This is my oldest, and my middle, and my youngest, and these are their people. And this was just last month. So they're grown-ups now. The youngest is 29, the oldest is 34. We homeschooled in Alaska and California and Texas. We were in the military, so we moved a few times. And that gave me an opportunity to meet a variety of people and see how a variety of people handle things. So that was kind of an interesting opportunity. I'm an author. I've written a book called Homeschooled Teens. 75 young people talk about life without school. And that's at Amazon. And it's as a hard copy book or as a digital. And what it is as an ebook, what it is 25-ish questions that everybody wants to know from teens and up. What was your life like as an unschooled teenager? How did you learn? Where did you get into college? Did you make any friends? Did you miss prom? Did you hate your mom? What was the story? And they all answered. And it was really nice to be able to kind of pick their brains. I do have 20-ish unschooling guides, different collections of information in kind of a mini magazine type of a format that helps you dive deeper in a particular concern. So if you go to the unschoolingmomtomom.com website, which is right here, and go to the shop, you can see all the guides and all the ebooks. There's an Everything Counts ebook, which takes subject by subject, all the different things that happen in your life that count for language arts or for math or for science or for social studies or things like that. And it's not an all-inclusive, but it certainly starts to break the grip that it has to look like the way we learned it in school. Unschooling Your Teen is an ebook that I have that's part of the teen package, the teen toolkit. It's also available in the membership group. All of my books are there. So if you want to join the membership, you get a lot. You get all the guides and all the ebooks, plus hundreds of PDFs because I just like to make them. I do have a podcast, Unschooling Mom to Mom. Some of you have found me through that. And we have been doing that for about 3 years. And they're very short little 10-minute pep talks to help you out. And so you can always grab that. I'm over on all these different social media and here on YouTube. And if you want to dive deeper, you can join the membership group. You can take an unschooling course. I have Jumping Into Unschooling is on sale this month. So I have something at the end and we can talk a little about that. And private coaching, I still am doing for probably another week. If you have like a 30-minute question that you have, we can talk. And I normally don't do 30-minute coaching calls, but right before the school year in August and right before people are trying to decide whether to go back or not, we can have a quick call and that would be really helpful. So now it's time. All of that. And we're finally getting to what you came for. Unschooling is going to be unique for every family. Families with one child are going to have a different dynamic than families that have more kids. Some people have suggested that an unschooling day is like a Saturday morning filled with the hustle and the bustle of everyone being together. Some families are more active, others are more homebodies. No one is right or wrong. This is the start of learning how to individualize. Maybe your family is into getting out and exploring in the community, figuring out fun things to do that the kids would enjoy. Maybe that's what you're going to be spending your time doing instead of searching for curriculum. You're going to be looking for fun things to do out in the world. Others have suggested that unschooling is kind of like a day in summer, filled with the potential of daydreams and explorations and discovery. Life is full of exciting adventures. Some are large, some are small, and we get to take it as they come. A joyful quality seems to exist for families who are successful with unschooling. They're curious about all kinds of things that cross their paths on a daily basis. And this could be one of the biggest reasons that it's hard to produce a typical day on demand when somebody is asking for it. I think that what's most typical of successful unschooling parents is this, that the parents' attitude about life and learning, we keep learning about ourselves and peeling things back, that you prioritize connections with your kids over academics and expectations, and that you have a desire to add something to your child's day to make it fuller and richer. because it's really all about individuality, right? Individuality is such an interesting thing. Our society says, we're the rugged individuals, an individual. And yet a whole lot of our society is about, but not too individual, please. Or you do need to conform and don't step out of line and bad things happen and let me scare you back into line, all of that kind of stuff. So individuality is an interesting thing. It is really, really important. Unschooling is like taking the concept of individuality to the max, right? We're going to do things really different. And one of the problems is it can feel really scary. You're doing something that's really, really different. It's not familiar. It's not how you learned. It's probably not how, we spent a lot of time sitting in classrooms like this where everything looked the same. Conformity, it was rewarded. And conformity is going to feel comfortable. Stepping away from the familiar, it feels chaotic. And society says, get back in line and don't be too weird. But the more information and support you get, the steadier you're going to feel. Maybe you're here because you're kind of a window shopper. You're just looking around to see what your options are. You want to look before you buy, that kind of a phase. You want to see if unschooling is just a little too weird or is it okay? Sometimes what happens is you're looking in the wrong store windows, though. You're seeing all the curriculum options out there instead of looking more at that child standing right in front of you. And that's where unschooling is going to be different from other homeschooling options. We might worry that we lack creativity and that's why we want to see what others are doing. We were always taught that there was one right answer and we sure didn't want to get it wrong, especially not this time when we're talking about our child. But all those years of doing what the teacher said made us less likely to trust ourselves. It's not creativity that's lacking. It's in there. It's confidence that we don't have a lot of. And as you move toward unschooling and away from being told what to do all the time or comparing yourselves to others to measure your own worth, the more your confidence will grow. We know this all too well that many of us were feeling like we had to check our work. We had to see what other people were doing. We were really pushed into a don't try to do anything on your own. And how many years did we spend in school? We spent a lot of time doing this. So another reason, I know this one all too well, sometimes we're in this data gathering stage and it's a tool for procrastinating. Procrastinating does keep you safe. That's something that we may have learned in school, that if we take our time, somebody else will step forward. or we just are really comfortable with gathering data without making the decisions. In school, we wanted to avoid failure at all costs. And so sometimes that just immobilized us. You may have more of that in you than you realized. One of the things that happens when we're unschooling is we start to see what are our motivations, what are things in us that we are bringing into our adult life that we may choose to keep, and we may decide we could discard that, or we could figure out another way, or learn how to manage it. Oftentimes, it doesn't really have to do with procrastination, but oftentimes we are asking our kids to make changes and do things because it will make us feel better. And really, that feel better on our part needs to be up to us. We don't need to ask our kids to modify their behavior so we feel better. So it's something to think about, that taking action on our part is scarier for some than others. So these are all things that you start to notice about yourself. You're waiting for everything to line up just right is really kind of a recipe for taking no action at all, right? Here's the truth. When you're with your child more hours of the day, you learn more about how they tick, what they like, What will work? What won't work? We start really individualizing all of this so that they can grow and thrive. And it's not going to look like anybody else's lives. We will begin to be our own experts because we'll be the ones who know the most about our little learners. Now, a lot of these typical day questions are about shifting perspective. So I want us to look at a typical day. So, typical day. You wake up, you make breakfast, feed the pets, go to the grocery store. Maybe you read a little poetry or something funny or comic book or something with the kids over lunch. Do the dishes, run a quick vacuum while the kids are out playing in the backyard. Then they come in and they play a little Minecraft, and you put away laundry and you play a couple of rounds of Crazy Eights and fix dinner. And the dinner conversation is about stuff that's just happening in the world. Maybe you get caught up on Facebook while the kids are watching Shark Week. And then they ask to buy a couple more apps, and then you start winding down for bed and you think, okay, yeah, that's what my day is going to look like. Where's the school? And there's not really, the schoolwork aspect is notably missing, but the learning is not missing. So examples of the learning that happens with this very simple day, there's health and nutrition, life skills, a variety of things like this. Learning to cook, learning about food groups and healthy choices and delicious choices. And this person likes this and this person doesn't. And what are taste buds about? And next thing you know, one thing leads to another. Maybe we'll talk about our sleep needs and what we need to do to get ready for bed. So it's still more about health all throughout the day. We may touch on science because of the biology or an animal anatomy and physiology with our pets or with what we're watching on TV. Maybe we're watching more about where are sharks, where do they live, and what are the habitats like and how are they changing. And then we're looking at a globe to see how far away that is or how deep the water is and how the temperature changes with the depth of the water. All of that is gathering more information to help kids learn more. We oftentimes we don't count it because they're just little tiny bites of information. But the truth is, they all pile together to be a bigger pile of knowledge so that when the kids are older and they want to do something more abstract, maybe they go to community college to take a class and they have a pile of working knowledge to hook abstract ideas onto. It's one of the reasons school is so hard for younger kids because they're trying to do abstract things and they haven't had enough life experience. They need more experiences so that when they hear an abstract thing, they can make a connection and say, oh, yeah, that's right. That is like that. I have played with that. I have done that. I have seen that. I have heard of that. Because if everything is abstract, it's number one, easily forgotten. So then you've wasted a lot of time. And it just doesn't make connections because learning really has to be in context for the learner, even when it's us, for we have to be wanting the information or in some way seeing the relevance of learning it. Some of the language arts that happens, you can see language arts in this typical day, maybe reading poetry over lunch, finding out about rhyming words. Maybe it's just funny words that they heard on YouTube and they're talking about vocabulary and they're expanding their vocabulary. Reading grocery signs, labels, game instructions, chats, library books, all these different things are part of language arts. The technology aspect, they're researching skills to improve. They're going to get better as they start looking things up. How do you look up something? The dog's doing this. How do we make them stop? I don't know. Let's go to YouTube and find out. Or questions that pop up in their Minecraft game. They're really learning a lot about technology and how to use it. I mentioned about geography, that in addition to like the biology of the shark, that whole concept of the environment and what other cultures use sharks for, and it can go in almost any subject direction. The math that happens throughout our day, just with sorting and understanding money or estimating and comparison shopping, between should I get this app or that app? Should I buy the annual plan or the week by week or month by month? And do I know for sure that I like it? All the factors that go in to help you make a decision about finances. And so, of course, a 7-year-old isn't going to have as much life experience as you or even as a 15-year-old. And and I will say that a lot of times kids' ideas about what they can buy, what they can budget for, changes when it's their own money. So that's something to be aware of. That they're like, wow, they just think money grows on trees. Well, they won't forever. Trust me. Civics, I mentioned civics on here, current events that we talk about, whether they're overhearing us talking with other adults or we're watching something on the news or something that, as politics rolls in and what's the Supreme Court all about and who's the president and who are other government officials and what are their roles in our lives? All of that, you have time to talk about these things with them because you're not busy trying to check boxes. And then once you get your boxes checked, because some curriculum companies said, no, this is the year we learn about fractions, or this is the year we learn about the solar system. It has more to do with whether it's coming up in daily life. When you have the opportunity to tap into the real world in the real moment and you're not checking somebody else's boxes, you have more energy. So you may think, I don't have the energy to have these conversations. Well, when you're not spending it on pushing them up the hill of curriculum, you do have more energy. They don't have as much resistance when it has to do with something that they're interested in. So those are factors too. I wanted to add this in so that was your just typical day. And then adding in a library trip or a museum or an aquarium or a theater or bowling or hiking or documentaries or movies or current event conversations. All of these are going to add these other subjects into their life. It doesn't mean you have to go to the library every day. So maybe these are things that you do once a week, or you get a big whiteboard calendar and you figure out, all right, we're going to go to the museum at this time of the month, and we're going to go bowling here and hiking here, and that will be spread out over the course of a month. So the tool that I'm going to give you in a couple of slides has to do with how to pace that. So we're going to come to that. So as you look at your week, you're going to add those opportunities to learn, and you're going to have these conversations with them about stuff that you're seeing. Sometimes we're in a hurry to get things settled, to create a routine, because then we feel like everything is under control. And I think that that's really at the heart of the question about typical days. We want to identify a pattern that we can live with and stick with, because we're so used to a year of this is what we do every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And this is what we do because it was a school situation. And maybe in your work life, it works like that too. But if you are living a home life where life is just up to you and your choices, then it doesn't come at you like that. And so learning how to deal with this kind of freedom is going to be a lot more important. Because, unschooling is going to come along and say, yes, you set up that curriculum, you set up those subjects in a line for the next 6 months, but something happened. Somebody got sick. Somebody isn't interested. Some growth and developmental change happened. Some life change happened in your world, and you need to modify it. And if you have spent all your time setting up this big giant curriculum plan, all you feel like doing is steamrolling the kids through it. And suddenly the curriculum plan is more important than the kids. But when you have observations and conversations with them, then you really are connecting with them, because some of the things that's going to do is it's going to give you more data for the decisions that are right around the corner, like this week to make. Your kids are going to feel heard and they're going to feel valued, and that's going to make them more cooperative than if you were simply saying, I don't care what you want to do, just do this and get done with it, and then you can have your life. That's not really going to work. It can work if you want to live in a house that's kind of a coercive my way or the highway kind of parenting approach. And certainly a lot of people do that. But if you're looking for a more connected, prioritizing the relationships, then having more conversations and listening to them, even when they say something that you're like, oh my gosh, it's just good insight to know that's where their head is. That's what's going on. It allows you to have more flexibility so you can pivot when you need to. And then end up having all of these different individualized experiences. It allows you to readjust when you need to. Lots of times our typical days, when we have that question, what's a typical day like? We're visualizing like how we're going to set up that little classroom. A lot of the homeschooling community spend a lot of time talking about how they're going to set up the learning rooms, the classrooms, the school rooms. Here's where we're going to learn. Ours are more multi-purpose rooms or a multi-purpose house based on what the family members want to do. You know, messy things can happen in the kitchen or in the bathroom or outside. Whereas cozy reading nooks and extra pillows and fuzzy blankets help create a quieter learning environment for reading together or watching something on TV or YouTube or listening to podcasts and audiobooks or doing puzzles or just daydreaming. These often change with seasons too. We're more outside or we're more inside based upon where we live. And also seasons of childhood, you know, growth and developmentally. What are they into now? Because you can look at, 4 or 5 years ago, they're not into the same things they were into because they're growing and evolving. So you want to think about what do you're looking at their interests, you're looking at their personalities, you're looking at these seasons, and then you're thinking, what do I want to elicit in my home? Do I want the feelings to be cozy or energetic or nurturing or amusing or inspiring, fun, loving, cheerful? What do I wish my kids could experience when they're at home? If you have a real rowdy, energetic child, maybe you need to put a little trampoline in the living room for them to jump and get some energy out. Um, Maybe you have a more sedentary kid and you want to make sure there's plenty of cozy pillows and think life feels comfortable. And so you want to, instead of trying to make them different than how they really are, let's accept them who they are as is. Because then when they feel loved and accepted, then they're going to feel safe enough to expand a little bit beyond their comfort ranges. The idea about messy houses, a lot of people say, I can't live with a mess. I can't have that kind of mess. It'll make me crazy. Well, anytime that we talk in that kind of a black and white thinking, it's a red flag. It's worth looking at. Well, why? Why can you not have that? If this is really going to make your kid happy, could you have a separate area? Could you have a little area that's a corner with a cozy chair that you look out the window and you don't see the chaos that's happening? How can we get everybody's needs met in this home instead of cut and dry? I got to have this and it's got to be like this. Because sometimes when you unpack that, because you have ideas in your head, a good mom has a clean house. A good mom doesn't go to bed with dishes in the sink. A good mom doesn't let the kids leave their shoes all over the place, all over the house. So let's unpack that. Maybe make a list of what is it to be a good parent for you. For you, that may be different than for me. Maybe it has to do with a good mom makes time to talk with their kids. A good mom decides not to be a drill sergeant. Because when you think about, you have these kids that live in this house, but you must have it pristine for who? Because not for those kids that live there, because they don't care. Just something to unpack. Sometimes when we're in my membership group, we start to unpack some of the things of why are we asking this? And sometimes we don't know. But the more we dive in and think about why, the more reveals itself. Sometimes it's going to be about getting out into the community, what a typical day is like. Some of us are going to live in cities, others are going to live in the country. And for some, that means that that's kind of quite a trek to get into town and participate in community activities. And not that rural unschoolers don't do that, but it's not so much of a daily occurrence as if you lived right in town. Families in bigger cities or those who simply live closer to the local coffee or ice cream shop, they're going to have a different opinion of how easy it is to venture out. Their day-to-day experience is going to be different as well. And then family dynamics can play a big role in whether venturing out in the community is part of a typical day. Some families with little kids running around, getting out the door is really hard, and you may not choose to do that a couple of times a day. You may wait for that season to change, to when they can find their own jackets or put on their own shoes. And sometimes this feels really overwhelming when you're a newer stay-at-home parent who wants to get out more, or you had this vision of how this was going to be, and then your kids are not into it the way you had that story playing out in your head. And as a grandmother now, I can tell you in looking back that difficult phases don't last forever. That, you'll hear people say that, but it really is true. So you have to find a way to continue to move through where you are right now, holding it, knowing that this won't be where we always are. And then to remind yourself that no family is like the other. It's not like my kids' third grade experience is just like their older siblings' third grade experience and the people down the street's third grade experience, where that's just all cookie cutter for that particular age. It is really uniform there. You're not really allowed to deviate from the course, but that doesn't fit everybody. And then you miss out on so much because you're trying to duplicate what somebody else's pattern is. So that's the same thing. I bring this up because of the community. Sometimes you'll see online, oh, this family's going out and doing all these things, and my kids won't budge. Okay, then your kids are in this stay-at-home phase for now. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just where you are. How can you make sure they're having a full, rich life in the way that fits them? That's that whole comparisonitis, I think they sometimes call it. And it's so common that it leaves us feeling inadequate or subpar, or we're not doing it right. So focusing on what you have and what you love about what you have and your own personal goals, so you're going to look more inward than outward to feel enough. We don't pay attention to the fact that that's an inside job. You're going to have to work on that. Lots of times people want more examples, so we're going to go a little bit more here because homes with little kids are going to be different than homes with older kids. And in some ways, unschooling is easier for families with little kids because society is okay with allowing more playtime. Play really is how kids learn. It's how all humans really learn. We can't see what their brain is looking for, but they intuitively are moving in the direction they need to go to explore and discover. Curiosity and creativity is in all of our hardwiring, but it's really noticeable in some of the little kids. So some unschooling families get up early to start the day, others sleep in. Some have wild play in the morning and calmer in the afternoons, and others are the reverse. Some days you're going out and some days you're staying in, and you're noticing how your children are reacting to all these different options. That's going to tell you, do we keep doing this next week or do we modify it? As the kids got a little bit older, unschooling families still protect that playtime. It's where imagination is growing and kids continue to develop. They don't have to buckle down and do a little math, or when they're still just sorting and playing some coin-based game, or they're budgeting to get new apps, or exploring the world a little bit more, or playing make-believe. And lots of times we see unschooling kids stay in that play mode longer than their school peers because they're allowed to. It is kind of a natural thing that gets squashed out when they're forced to go for 8 hours in school 5 days a week. You might see a little bit more on team sports or on group activities, or maybe even taking little classes here and there based upon their hobbies or their interests, or something that they want to dive a little bit more, if that's the style they like to learn, you know? And so that's something to pay attention to, also to notice, is this because I think they need to learn it this way, or do they really actually thrive learning it a certain way? And then the teenagers, a lot of times people shift gears when it comes to the teen years, but unschooling families continue going in that same direction and helping them discover and dive deeper into hobbies, helping them see what their natural tendency is, whether it's to get out and be with lots of people or stay home and live a slower pace. What a gift to be able to help them see that the way they are is perfectly okay. Everybody doesn't have to be the class president or the track star. But what about if they actually know themselves better? That's a great start for transitioning into adulthood. The next step, I told you I was going to give you some action steps. I have a free PDF. It'll be in the chat if you're live, and it'll be in the comments section if you're watching the recording. If you registered for the webinar, it'll be in your email. So we'll send this to you too. So if you're like, I can't find the chat, don't worry, I'll send it to you. But lots of people are like, okay, tell me the first steps. So I can help you do that. And, the more you do, the more comfortable you'll be with charting your own course. I'm not going to tell you so that you only rely on me. That would be more of the same. This is about, here is how you unpack what you need to do so that you can live this life the way you're meant to live. So in this 3 or 4 page, I can't remember, PDF, there are these 3 sections, and the gathering ideas is going to help you. You're going to start to think about what's fun to do at home, what's fun to do in the community, what's fun to do by themselves, what's fun to do with family and with friends. So we're not looking at how am I going to squeeze a little algebra in. We're looking at these things. This is your starting place. So if you start to get nervous and you're thinking, but they need to have some of this, then it's a deschooling thing, right? It means that you're probably going to need to learn more about unschooling and learn more about deschooling. And I have tools for both of that. And so I want you to go ahead and while you're busy thinking of all these fun things, you're going to, for yourself, put yourself on a little workout plan of how are you going to read a little more, listen to a few more podcasts. My podcasts are only 10 minutes long. You can do that while you do the dishes or while you're driving to the store, and just kind of get another, bringing it to the front of your mind. And the reason I say that is because the world is primarily a school-based life out there. And so you have to do deliberate things to offset that. And that may be making time to read or listen or watch, however you learn best. If you're at that phase where the minute you read something, you fall asleep, then don't do that. Then recognize, I either need a little more sleep, or I learn better by video, or I learn better by podcasts, or I learn better by talking with other parents who are on this same path. So if it's a deschooling thing, I do have a couple of tools here. The deschooling guide has a lot of walkthrough about what does that mean, deschooling, and we can have some other monthly webinars about deschooling. The 365 days of deschooling, if you're like, I can't think of what we're supposed to be doing. It's got a lot. It's got 365 days of other things you could do instead of thinking about academics. So the second section is about daily structure. Lots of times people say, oh, unschoolers, they have no structure. But life has structure. We sleep, we wake, we get hungry. We build our life out in a way that suits us, and we create a structure. So what I recommend, and I have a little tool in here for you, to block off time to connect with the kids in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. You have 3 different sections. How are you going to not have just the sand fall through your fingers, right? And this is going to help you see, yeah, we're going to play a little Candyland in the morning, and then we're going to go to the library in the afternoon, and we're going to watch Shark Week at night. and these are the three things we're going to do together. Or maybe it's solo things, and he really likes to play such and such in the mornings before we get going. And then you can use like lunch or dinner as the transition time when you're switching to something else. And remember, it's all an experiment. You're just trying things to see what's going to work and what's not, and then modifying it for next week, because that's what I want you, well, before I get ahead of myself. So remember, we are looking for a family rhythm is what we're trying to set up. We're not trying to set up, we do this every Monday at 10 a.m. Maybe we do. I mean, like if you have soccer practice at 4 o'clock on Thursdays, then you have that. And so I think just going ahead and plugging in those have tos and then working around it, that's a good way to go. I do have a strewing calendar if you're just looking for ideas to help you think about ways to sprinkle ideas in their path, things that they might not have thought of. The string calendar is very fun. It's only $5 a month. You buy it for 6 months or 12 months. And it's a really great way to, lots of times people print the calendar and then the kids circle the things that are interesting. Maybe they just read some Pippi Longstocking and they want to have a Pippi Longstocking birthday party because it turns out her birthday is this month. Or maybe it is Penguin Day or Parfaits for Breakfast Day, or all these different things that just kind of make your life full and rich and more fun, because when you're having more fun, you're learning more. It just ties together like that. There is another guide called Your Unschooling Home. And this is cool because what I've done is I've taken room by room ways to kind of make your home more conducive to what usually well, how could you learn more in a living room? How could you learn more in a kitchen? How are we using our senses as we move through the house? There's a variety of different ways that that might just be ideas to help spark, and then I would send you off to Pinterest to find some more. I do have a video called Your Unschooling Nest, and so when we put this up at YouTube, I'll have a link for that up here. So the third section is about weekly plans, because I really think you only need to make plans for about a week at a time, because that way you can pivot as needed. If it turns out the weather is not what you thought it was going to be, you can pivot and it doesn't throw everything off. So I always recommend everybody get a big whiteboard calendar, because lots of times we have ideas in our head of what the week is going to look like, and the kids are like clueless and they're frustrated because they just got involved in something and now you're telling them they've got to go. But if you had a great big whiteboard up that said, later at 1, we're going to go do this thing, and they could, watch for it. I had one that always wanted friends around, and so she's like, I haven't had a sleepover in such and such long of time. And I'm like, well, no, let's look at the calendar. Oh, look, somebody slept over 3 days ago. I don't think it's quite as long ago. And so it helps them get a little bit more accuracy and clarity in what's really happening. And so when you put in the big things like the have tos, the doctor's appointments, the library books will be overdue if we don't get there by Thursday, or something's happening on Wednesdays, you plug those in first, and then you see what would be a good rhythm. How can we make this work for us for this week? And then at the end of the week, you look back and you're like, oh, I thought that was going to work and that didn't work. And here's why. And then that becomes data to help you know what to do the next week. And so remember, when you think, oh, this is so much work, well, it's not much work compared to doing curriculum and trying to fit the kids through. This is just learning how to intentionally live your life. So the resources that I have for how to make plans from a week to week basis are the brainstorming guide and the membership group. The brainstorming is really cool. It has like 20 different areas. Like maybe it's going to a different restaurant and you're learning about cultures and different ethnicities and the smells and the sounds and this and the way the decor is, and you learn more about different places. Or maybe you are hiking, or you're going to try different hikes, or there's merry-go-rounds that you want to go see, or it's making donations or doing some community service that you want to fit into your plan. And so this allows you to brainstorm with the kids so that they can say, oh yeah, I could care less about hiking. Okay, then let's not do that one. Let's pick something else. Or maybe it has to do with movies or books or so many different things. So I have 20 different prompts to help you walk through that. So that's a really good tool, especially this time of January when you're looking at the months ahead. If you're learning more about unschooling, the Jumping Into Unschooling course is only $99 this month, so you can grab that. And How Unschoolers Learn Math is on sale for only $49. And because you're here, I am going to waive the sign up fee for if you want to join our membership group. But this is the month that I'm going to do a typical day challenge, which I've done a deschooling challenge and a gratitude challenge and a not back to school challenge. And what it is every day I'll give a little something, whether it's a blog post or a PDF or a video, or it's one little thing to just keep helping you build your own life experiences that have to do with thinking differently from how school wants you to think. So I really, really recommend joining the membership group. It's my favorite thing. Just some little ideas for you to look at. And sometimes the problem with typical days and thinking about typical days is then suddenly that fear about, oh my gosh, what about gaps? They're going to have gaps in their learning. And we all have gaps in our learning. But the good news is we all have access to the information at any time. It's not like the old days where you had to go to the library to find an encyclopedia set to look something up and hope it was not outdated. Now you can look it up online if you need to know something. And so we're using these old ways of assessing whether learning is happening or not in a information innovation age that doesn't really need the old way anymore. So gaps are easily filled the minute you want to fill them. And so when you focus on listening to them and helping them know how much they matter, and you're encouraging their curiosity, then their learning is happening and their trust with you is becoming stronger, which then they know you're their resource person. And that's what you want to be. So the real instructions for how to unschool are to get to know your child, to explore with them, to build a beautiful nest, to really individualize it all and get your priorities straight. I think a lot of times people are afraid to be doing something different from everybody else. But one of the things about stepping off the conveyor belt and stepping over into what's really important for you and your kids, life has a way of working out. And you end up finding other people that have similar priorities. And then it allows you to move through the world the way you want to. All right. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody got their typical day questions kind of calm down a little bit. Let me know if you still feel like, no, I'm still worried. um, Tap into some of the other resources, use the little PDF that I gave you, and join the membership group, and we can talk about your specific questions and help you brainstorm some answers and solutions to the problems. And I wish you a great 2024. And I will see you back with another webinar on the first Friday of February. I'm collecting ideas of what you might like to hear more, talk more about in the future webinars. So feel free to write to me at coaching@SuePatterson.com and let me know topics that you might like us to talk about. Thanks for being here, and I will see you guys in all the places. Also, if you were in the Facebook group or Instagram or depending on where, or if you were in the email list, let me know that you saw it from text on there and say that you came from Instagram, because I really would like to know which platforms people are and how I can make sure I show up there to help you figure out how to move through all this. All right, you guys, have a great rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in all the places.